The pounding on the front door shattered the evening quiet. Karen's enraged shouts echoed through the small neighborhood, her demands for Sarah to come outside growing ever more frantic. Sarah peered through the peephole, her heart racing. This couldn't be happening. Not again. With a deep, steadying breath, Sarah cracked open the door, already bracing for the onslaught. "What do you want, Karen?" she asked, voice tight. "You know damn well what I want." Karen's eyes were wild, her face flushed with fury. "That delivery you stole from my porch this morning. Where is it?" Sarah shook her head, baffled. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't take anything. Don't play dumb with me." Karen jabbed an accusatory finger towards Sarah. "The security cam caught you red-handed. Now fess up before I call the cops." Realization dawned on Sarah. The missing package must have been meant for Karen's address, not hers. But how could she convince the irate woman of that? "Karen, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Save it." Karen's voice rose to a shriek. "I know what I saw. You're a thief, and you're going to pay for this." Sarah's mind raced. She couldn't let this escalate any further. "Okay, let's just calm down and—" "Calm down." Karen's laugh was brittle and humorless. "Not a chance. You're going to return that package, or I swear." The front door next to Sarah's suddenly swung open, and a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out. "Is there a problem here?" His deep voice was measured, but his gaze was stern. Karen's tirade faltered, her eyes widening as she took in the newcomer. "Who the hell are you?" The man fixed her with an unwavering stare. "I'm Sarah's neighbor, and I'd appreciate it if you could keep it down. The whole neighborhood can hear you." Karen's mouth opened and closed, momentarily at a loss for words. Then her expression hardened. "This is none of your business. Now get back inside before I—" "Before you what?" The man's tone was laced with warning. "I think it's best if you leave. Now." For a long moment, Karen and the man engaged in a silent battle of wills. Then, with an indignant huff, Karen spun on her heel and stomped back to her car, muttering furiously under her breath. Sarah stared at her neighbor, stunned. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't." He held up a hand, cutting her off. "Don't worry about it." His lips quirked in a wry smile. "Believe it or not, I've had my fair share of run-ins with angry neighbors." Sarah couldn't help but chuckle, some of the tension leaving her body. "Well, I'm glad you were here. I wasn't sure how to handle that." "It's a good thing I was." His expression grew serious. "That woman seems unstable. You should be careful." Sarah nodded, her stomach twisting with unease. "I will. Thanks again." As she closed the door, Sarah couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that this was only the beginning of her troubles with Karen. The next morning, Sarah hurried to her car, hoping to avoid another confrontation with Karen. But as she stepped outside, she spotted the other woman marching towards her, a determined glint in her eyes. "There you are." Karen's voice was shrill with barely contained fury. "I've been waiting for you." Sarah inwardly groaned. "Karen, please. I really don't have time for this right now." "Oh, you'll make time." Karen's lips twisted into a triumphant smirk. "I've already called the police. They're on their way to arrest you for theft." Sarah's blood ran cold. "What? You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm deadly serious." Karen crossed her arms over her chest, a gleam of satisfaction in her eyes. "I have you on video taking that package from my porch. There's no way you're getting out of this one." Panic began to set in as the gravity of the situation sank in. But it was a mistake. The package was meant for my address, not yours. I didn't take anything that didn't belong to me. Karen's expression hardened. "Save it for the cops, sweetheart. I'm sure they'll be very interested to hear your sob story." Sarah's mind raced, trying to find a way to defuse the situation. "Look, Karen, let's just talk this through." There's nothing to talk about. Karen cut her off, her voice dripping with disdain. You're a thief, and you're going to pay for it. The sound of sirens in the distance made Sarah's heart skip a beat. Please, Karen, you have to believe me. I didn't do anything wrong. But Karen's only response was a triumphant grin as the police cars pulled up to the curb. As the officers approached, Sarah felt a wave of helplessness wash over her. How had this gone so horribly wrong? She watched in dread as the officers approached, their expressions grim. Ma'am, we've received a report of a theft. Are you Sarah Whittaker? Sarah swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry. Yes, that's me. But I can explain. Save it for the station. One of the officers cut her off, his tone leaving no room for argument. You're under arrest. With a sinking feeling, Sarah allowed the officers to place her in handcuffs, all the while praying that somehow, someway, she could convince them of her innocence. The ride to the police station was a blur of anxiety and disbelief for Sarah. Her mind raced, desperately searching for a way to explain the situation and clear her name. But as the officers escorted her through the bustling station, the weight of the charges against her began to sink in. Seated in the interrogation room, Sarah fidgeted nervously, her hands trembling. The two detectives who entered the room regarded her with identical expressions of skepticism. All right, Ms. Whittaker, the older detective began, his voice gruff. Care to explain what happened this morning? Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. It was all a misunderstanding. The package that was stolen from Karen's porch was actually meant for my address. I had no idea it was hers. The younger detective leaned forward, his brow furrowed. That's a convenient story. Do you have any proof to back that up? I don't have any physical proof, but I swear I'm telling the truth. Sarah felt her desperation rising. I would never steal something that didn't belong to me. The older detective fixed her with a steely gaze. Well, the security footage we have says otherwise. It clearly shows you taking the package from Karen's porch. Sarah's heart sank. But I didn't know it was hers. I thought it was mine. Please, you have to believe me. The detectives exchanged a pointed look. That's not how it works, Ms. Whittaker. The evidence speaks for itself. You're facing charges of theft and trespassing. Panic started to set in as the gravity of the situation truly hit her. But I didn't do anything wrong. You have to understand. Save it. The younger detective held up a hand, silencing her. We've heard enough. You're going to be spending the night in holding while we sort this out. As the detectives left the room, Sarah felt a crushing sense of despair. How had this happened? She was an honest, hard-working person, and now she was being treated like a common criminal. The thought of spending the night in a jail cell made her stomach churn with dread. Alone in the small, cold interrogation room, Sarah fought back tears of frustration and fear. She had to find a way to prove her innocence, or her life, as she knew it, could be over. After a restless night in the holding cell, Sarah was summoned back to the interrogation room. This time, the detectives were joined by a stern-faced woman in a crisp suit. Ms. Whittaker, this is Assistant District Attorney Evelyn Harding. The older detective gestured to the woman. She'd like to have a word with you. Sarah swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry. Am I in even more trouble? Ada Harding fixed her with an impassive stare. That remains to be seen. Now, I understand you've been claiming this was all a misunderstanding regarding a package delivery. Sarah nodded, her heart racing. Yes, that's right. The package that was taken from Karen's porch was actually meant for my address. I had no idea it belonged to her. Harding's gaze narrowed. And do you have any proof to back up that claim? Sarah felt her stomach twist with dread. No, I don't have any physical proof. But I swear I'm telling the truth. I would never steal something that didn't belong to me. Harding's expression remained unreadable. Well, unfortunately, the security footage we have paints a rather different picture. It clearly shows you taking the package from Karen's porch. Sarah's shoulders slumped in defeat. I know, but I really didn't know it was hers. I thought it was mine. That's a rather convenient excuse, don't you think? Harding leaned forward, her eyes boring into Sarah's. The evidence we have suggests you're a thief, plain and simple. Panic began to rise in Sarah's chest. Please, you have to believe me. I'm not a criminal. I work hard, I pay my taxes, and I've never been in trouble with the law before. This is all just a big misunderstanding. Harding's lips pressed into a thin line. Be that as it may, the fact remains that you are facing serious charges. Theft and trespassing are not minor offenses. Sarah felt her heart drop. So what happens now? Well, that's up to you. Harding's tone was unyielding. You can either plead guilty and accept a plea bargain, or you can fight the charges in court. But I must warn you, the evidence against you is quite compelling. Sarah's mind raced, weighing her options. Pleading guilty would mean a criminal record and potentially significant consequences. But fighting the charges in court was a daunting prospect with no guarantee of success. I need time to think about this, Sarah stammered, her voice wavering. Harding nodded, her expression softening slightly. Very well. I'll give you until tomorrow to decide. But I must insist that you consider your options carefully. The choice you make here could have a lasting impact on the rest of your life. As the detectives escorted her back to the holding cell, Sarah felt a growing sense of dread. The weight of the decision before her was overwhelming, and she couldn't shake the nagging fear that no matter what she chose, her life was about to change forever. The night in the holding cell had been a nightmare for Sarah. Sleep had evaded her mind consumed by the impossible decision she faced. Plead guilty and accept the consequences, or fight the charges and risk an even more uncertain future. As the sun peeked through the barred window, Sarah knew her time was up. She had to make a choice. When the detectives came to retrieve her, Sarah's hands trembled with uncertainty. I've decided to fight the charges. The older detective raised a skeptical eyebrow. You sure about that, ma'am? The evidence against you is pretty damning. Sarah swallowed hard, her resolve wavering. I know, but I didn't do this. I can't just accept a criminal record for something I didn't do. The younger detective shrugged. Suit yourself, but don't say we didn't warn you. A.J. Harding was waiting for them in the interrogation room, her expression impassive. So, Ms. Whittaker, you've decided to take your chances in court. Sarah nodded, steeling herself. Yes, that's right. I'm innocent, and I'm going to prove it. Harding's lips thinned into a disapproving line. Very well. I hope you're prepared for what's to come. The prosecution will be throwing the full weight of the law at you. Sarah's stomach churned with anxiety, but she refused to back down. I'm ready to face whatever you throw at me. I didn't do this, and I'm going to make sure the truth comes out. Harding studied her for a long moment, then nodded. So be it. Your trial is scheduled for next week. I suggest you start preparing your defense. As Sarah was escorted back to the holding cell, the gravity of her decision began to sink in. She was putting her entire future on a line, and the odds didn't seem to be in her favor. But she couldn't live with the weight of a false conviction, no matter the cost. Alone in the cell, Sarah took a deep, steadying breath. She would need to be at her absolute best if she wanted to overcome the mountain of evidence against her. This was going to be the fight of her life, and she couldn't afford to lose. The day of the trial dawned bright and clear, but for Sarah, the looming court proceedings cast a dark cloud over the morning. As she sat at the defendant's table, her heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. A.J. Harding wasted no time in presenting the prosecution's case. The security footage from Karen's porch was played for the jury, clearly showing Sarah taking the package. Harding's questioning of the arresting officers painted a damning picture, highlighting the overwhelming evidence against the defendant. Sarah's attorney, a young but tenacious woman named Olivia, rose to cross-examine the witnesses. She methodically challenged the officers' accounts, honing in on inconsistencies and gaps in their testimony. But the security footage remained the linchpin of the prosecution's argument, and Olivia struggled to find a way to discredit it. When it came time for the defense's case, Olivia called Sarah to the stand. As Sarah recounted the events of that fateful day, her voice trembled with emotion, but her sincerity was palpable. "I had no idea that package belonged to Karen," Sarah testified. "I thought it was meant for my address. I would never steal something that didn't belong to me. This is all just a terrible misunderstanding." Olivia pressed her client, eliciting further details about the package's delivery and Sarah's actions. But the prosecution's cross-examination was relentless, with Harding repeatedly pointing to the damning video evidence. As the trial wore on, Sarah watched in dismay as the jury's expressions grew more and more skeptical. Olivia's arguments, though impassioned, seemed to be falling on deaf ears. When the closing arguments were finished, Sarah sat, her stomach in knots, as the jury deliberated. The minutes ticked by like hours, and with each passing moment, Sarah's hope began to fade. Finally, the jury returned with their verdict. Sarah held her breath, her heart pounding in her ears. "We find the defendant, Sarah Whittaker, guilty of theft and trespassing." Sarah felt the world shift beneath her feet. Guilty. After all her efforts to prove her innocence, the jury had still sided with the prosecution. She fought back tears of devastation, her entire future now hanging in the balance. As the judge pronounced her sentence, Sarah could only stare ahead, numb to the world around her. The consequences of her conviction were only just beginning to sink in. In the aftermath of the trial, Sarah's life had become a whirlwind of uncertainty and upheaval. The guilty verdict had upended everything, leaving her feeling utterly powerless and adrift. The sentencing hearing was a gut-wrenching experience. Olivia had pleaded for leniency, emphasizing Sarah's clean record and the extraordinary circumstances of the case. But the judge remained unmoved, handing down a sentence of 6 months in county jail and 2 years of probation. As the bailiffs escorted Sarah away, the weight of her conviction hit her like a ton of bricks. She would have a criminal record, one that could haunt her for years to come. The shame and humiliation were almost too much to bear. During her time in jail, Sarah struggled to come to terms with her new reality. The monotony of the days, the indignity of the routine, and the ever-present threat of violence all took a toll on her mental and emotional well-being. She found solace in the rare moments of connection with her fellow inmates, women whose stories of hardship and resilience reminded her that she was not alone. Upon her release, Sarah faced an uphill battle to rebuild her life. The probation requirements, the stigma of her conviction, and the financial strain of legal fees all conspired to make even the simplest tasks feel overwhelming. She applied for job after job, only to be met with rejection after rejection, her criminal record a scarlet letter that haunted her at every turn. Worst of all, Sarah had to live with the knowledge that the true culprit, Karen, had gotten away with her crime. The woman who had so callously accused her and manipulated the system to secure her conviction seemed to have suffered no consequences for her actions. Bitterness and resentment began to take root in Sarah's heart, fueling a burning desire for retribution. She knew she couldn't let Karen's actions go unchallenged, but the path forward was murky and fraught with uncertainty. As Sarah grappled with her newfound reality, she vowed to find a way to clear her name and hold Karen accountable for the damage she had caused. It wouldn't be easy, but Sarah was determined to fight, no matter the cost. In the months that followed, Sarah's determination to seek justice only grew stronger. She knew that overturning her conviction would be an uphill battle, but she refused to give up. Olivia, her trusted attorney, worked tirelessly to uncover new evidence that could shed light on the true events of that fateful day. They scoured every detail of the case, searching for any inconsistencies or loopholes that could help them mount a compelling appeal. Meanwhile, Sarah took it upon herself to investigate Karen's background and actions. She was determined to find proof that the other woman had orchestrated the entire situation, setting her up for a fall. Through painstaking research and dogged persistence, Sarah slowly began to piece together a disturbing pattern of behavior. It emerged that Karen had a history of similar confrontations with her neighbors, often using the legal system to her advantage. Sarah discovered that the security footage from her own porch had mysteriously malfunctioned on the day of the incident, leaving no record of Karen's actions. Fueled by this newfound evidence, Olivia filed a motion to appeal the verdict, arguing that Sarah's conviction had been the result of a malicious and calculated scheme by Karen. The court agreed to hear the case, and Sarah found herself back in the spotlight, this time with the weight of the justice system upon her. The appeal hearing was a tense and emotional affair, with Olivia meticulously dismantling the prosecution's case and presenting the damning evidence against Karen. Sarah watched with bated breath as the judge listened intently, her fate once again hanging in the balance. In the end, the judge's ruling was unequivocal. Sarah's conviction was overturned, and she was exonerated of all charges. The courtroom erupted in applause as Sarah, tears streaming down her face, embraced her attorney, overwhelmed with relief and vindication. As for Karen, she found herself the target of a scathing investigation, her own misdeeds laid bare for all to see. The once triumphant woman now faced a slew of charges, including perjury and harassment, her own web of deceit unraveling around her. For Sarah, the road to redemption had been long and arduous, but in the end, justice had prevailed. She emerged from her ordeal with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to use her experience to advocate for reform and empower others who had fallen victim to similar injustices. Though the scars of her ordeal would never fully heal, Sarah knew that she had reclaimed her power, her dignity, and her rightful place in the world. It was a victory hard won, but one that would shape the rest of her life.